Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I have a Happy Meal or love themed card to share with you using the Big Hugs Woodland stamp set from Hello Bluebird. Now I don't know if you recall the first time that I shared a card with this adorable stamp set, but I asked the man here which image was his favorite and he said this big one where everyone is hugging each other. So today I'm creating a card with his favorite image. Now in this bullet journal I have swatched out my distress inks. I still have to add the newest ones. I will add them just on the left and the right where it sort of goes in the rainbow order. But I decided to go with the yellows and I took out 4 of the distress inks. These are in the order in my bullet journal. So I'm just using that. It's really handy to have something like this if you want to create a gradient that you have swatched out the colors that you have and have them in some sort of a rainbow order. Now I wanted to create again a background that draws the attention like I most of the time do with stencils, but without using stencils, and I wanted it to be a bit rough. So I decided to take a piece of paper and just tear it in 4 because I have 4 colors, and then use that rougher edge to get my ink blending started. And I'm going from my lightest color towards my darkest, with the lightest most close to where the image will be. And then the darkest will have just a tiny tip of this card, but I really think that it looks great how it turned out, and I think you can always also do a background like this with colors that aren't in a gradient formation, kind of, but I want to have, well, a background that drew the attention, but that also went really well together. And if you have color families, specifically you have several colors from one family, then you have a less dramatic but still gorgeous background kind of vibe. So I did that. That went actually really quickly. It sort of turned out how I had it in my head, and I wanted a white area where I was going to add later on the image on, and then that corner would just bring in a bit of light. So I'm stamping out my images here. I'm using the dark chocolate Gina K Designs Amalgam ink, which is a really fun one because just this brown helps actually with having the images appear a bit softer than with the black outline. A black outline is fine of course as well, but I was going to use a lot of earth tones or combinations for my critters here, and I thought with the dark chocolate that would work really well. So I'm going to use several brown combinations. I also have them listed on my blog post if you want to revisit later on the combinations that I used. They are all there for each critter separately. So that's really easy and handy to retrieve if you want to use these combinations or one of them. So for the fox, my favorite combination for foxes is the E18, E15, E33, E53, E51, if needed E50. It's a combination where I tend to grab towards whenever I'm coloring foxes. It's sort of a brownish orange in my opinion, and there are lovely orange combinations as well, but often for me I'm trying to have it a bit more muted, and then this is a really lovely combination in my opinion to have a fox in. So in between layers, whenever I think I added quite a lot of marker on top of my paper, I'm just using my heat gun to let that paper dry. I had a bit of, again, I have it often with the E18, also E47, but a bit of a syrupy kind of effect on the paper, and I already switched the nib, so that's not the issue, or it's a recurrent issue because my cap might be off, but it just was appearing a bit syrupy. But I just continued and it turned out fine, but it's not really good for your markers. I have noticed when you go with the other marker in it, it sort of gets the same effect on the other markers, so I wouldn't recommend it. But yeah, from time to time my markers are just acting weird, and I'm not a pro. So I work around it and I will survive it. For the squirrel, I'm using the same combination as for the fox, but I'm not using the darkest color. So just leaving out one marker on one of the extremes in the combination already gives you another beautiful color. So the squirrel is just everything again without E18, and I'm working my way from darkest to lightest. Wherever I need to, I add more layers. Most of the time on this paper, this is Transotype perfect coloring paper. Most of the time I need 2 layers to have it as I want the blend to be. But if you need more, you can add more. This paper can handle quite a lot. And in case you have another paper or this one and you have this feeling that it's not going to handle it anymore, use that heat gun and just let your paper dry quickly or put it aside so that it can dry naturally. That can really help you. Now onto the bear, the biggest image. I'm using E40s here, and I don't know if I would redo this card. What I don't, because, well, but if I would reuse this image, I wouldn't go for this combination anymore. I think it turned out okay, but I have one of my markers that is dry and I don't have the refill. That's the first problem. And then secondly, this E40 combination is really soft. It's a bit, for me, it's a bit grayish brown, and it's wonderful, but all of the other browns that I used on this card are quite vibrant and out there, and I just thought that this one was a bit off with all of the rest. But I'm happy with how it turned out, and well, I didn't have the urge to go over it, because since it's a really light combination, there is always this option to just let it dry for now and come back with other markers on top of it, and you will be able to cover it up. But I liked it, but I wouldn't say that I was 100% convinced of this working with the other browns. It's still an earth combination, so it works. But it could have been cuter, I think, with another. But that's personal opinion, of course. So here I am working my way again. This one is getting so dry, and I looked for it. I don't have the refill. I have the refill of all of the other markers, where I don't need one. But I don't have the one where my marker is running dry. So that's a bummer. I will have to purchase that refill the first, well, in the first order that I'm going to buy refills. It has been a while. So I'm just working my way through the markers, and just wherever I went outside the lines, I'm fixing that with my colorless blender. That really is my lifeguard. Without the colorless blender, I wouldn't be coloring with Copic Markers. Okay, so next up, the bunny. Really soft bunny. Here I'm using all of the same colors as for the squirrel, except the darkest one. So not the E15. So this means that it is all of the same markers as for the fox, except for the 2 darkest ones. Which is kind of cool, don't you think? I love this. This truly is a strength, and I really think that whenever you're buying markers, look at what you already have and look at how you can just extend that combination and just get something completely different without having to buy multiple markers or a complete new combination. It's too expensive for that. If you can, of course you do, you. From time to time I treat myself as well, and then I'm just buying without thinking. But if I have to be smart and just, well, see how the budgeting is going the month specifically, then I just look at the markers that I already have. And then last but not least, this lovely deer. There I am using some other markers, but also a few markers that come back in other combinations. Also on my first layer here, I tried to avoid those beautiful spots on the deer. And then the second layer came around and I was like, well, just leave them. We have a white jelly roll pen, we will fix it later on. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fix it later on with a white jelly roll pen. Also, as I send these images out with some brown ink, well, for example, the fox turned out quite dark with that syrupy kind of vibe from my marker. So I decided to, once everything was colored in, to go over the eyes and noses of the critters with a black glaze pen, as well as with a Copic multiliner just for the eyes that weren't dots, because that's really hard and I would mess it up. But I just went over that to let them shine a bit more also on darker areas. So here again, working my way, and the dots disappeared. And it's not bad like this neither, but I really love them, so I'm just going to add them with a bit of white jelly roll pen. Nothing fancy, but really quick fix. Oh, there is also the bird. Well, I said last but not least to the deer, but that was the final brown combination. So here I'm just doing the ears. And then for the bird, always a really difficult thing for me to decide the color of birds, because they can make or break an image. And so normally I should have started with the bird here, because that for me is the hardest one. But I decided to keep it really soft and to try to find somehow the orange yellow kind of vibe that I had from my background. So I went for this yellow red 14, yellow red 21, yellow 21. And then once I added a second layer, all of the coloring is done, and I can take the matching dies to cut this image out, which is really handy since there is quite a lot of elements going on in this image, so the die is a lifesaver for me. And then we are going to decide on the sentiment. So you can go in a variety of ways on this card, and I even, well, tested out whether changing the orientation of my background could work, and I think there are possibilities, definitely. But I just decided at the end to keep it as I intended. And then for the sentiment, I decided to take my favorite words die from Hello Bluebird and a bit of gold. I had my images stamped out with browns, so I did not want to add a black sentiment. And then there is this gorgeous shadow that I thought I was going to use, and then just trying to fit it on top of the background, it just was a bit too much in my opinion, so I just went for this gold. And something that I can recommend is to make a template to add it perfectly, like intended by Hello Bluebird, to make a template out of a bit of thinner paper. Now I did this in the past, I think. Either it was with this paper from Altenew or it was with Tonic Studios glitter paper. But in the past I tried it on a birthday card with Pretty Pink Posh. I don't know if you recall it, but I made one where I used the stencil with all of the candles that I just loved. And then I inlaid the happy birthday scripty kind of word, and I tried to remove it, like I'm doing here. And it just was really, really hard. I always like to keep the negative or the leftover piece of paper to guide me in where to place all of the elements specifically on my card base. But again, in this case, it was just a bit too thick, and so I really took my time to not mess up my background, and it worked out fine. But there are other papers, or if you just use colored cardstock, that are way easier to get rid of that template that you used. But I took my time, it worked out fine, but I would recommend taking another template, not a really thick one like I had here. Next, I'm placing the images, trying to center it a bit, therefore I'm using my T-square ruler. And then I have my panel ready. I am going to add now those black details. As I said, those eyes that aren't open, I'm just using a black Copic multiliner. You can use any thin black pen that you might have. And then all of the other elements, I decided to take my black Glaze pen, which is a really lovely pen that is terrifying for me because you're just putting dots there, and if you go a bit reckless, then the complete image is is ruined, so I don't use it all the time because I really want to keep the images as intended by the designers, illustrators, or anything like that. So I took my time, and then I also take that white jelly roll pen here to fix those dots, and then I saw that there was a fourth one, but I couldn't really determine it in the dark area, so I just looked at the stamp set and then I knew where to add my white jelly roll pen. Now I'm going to add this panel on top of my card base, and then I'm going to finish it off by adding some embellishments. The embellishments that I'm using today are from Crafty Meraki. They are called the Meraki Sparkle Enchanted Forest. And as the name says, it is enchanting. It is gorgeous. I said it many times before also with the videos that I created for Crafty Meraki. These embellishments are just incredible. You have several sizes, which is always great. Sometimes you have one, which is okay, but it's a bit bummer because I like to vary in sizes whenever I place multiple close to each other. 2 is really nice. 3, great, because I most of the time add max to 3 different embellishments close to each other. But having even more than that, as provided by Crafty Meraki, is just like a dream, because even though you are not putting them right next to each other, you can have multiple sizes on multiple areas of your card, and it's just mind-blowingly amazing. I love it. Therefore, I love the Meraki Sparkles from Crafty Meraki. Also, the other gems that they have, it's really, really great. And I love this Enchanted Forest. I haven't used it a lot because it was from one of the latest releases, well, in May. And it's just this yellow, brownish, goldish. It's perfect. It's just perfection, and with this color combination, it was fabulous. So that is my card. Really simple. A lot of coloring because of the image, but a really simple card in my opinion. Yellows, goldish colors. I had a lot of fun creating it. I hope that you like it. If you do, you can always give this video a thumbs up. I would truly appreciate it. Thank you so much for stopping by. I wish you all an incredible day, and I'll be back soon. Bye!